The cause of the war against Israel is hatred against Jews. This is not addressed, let alone resolved. It rarely even gets acknowledged. Every excuse in the book is used to deny this horrible truth and to pretend the war, the conflict, is about something else. Religious, political, racial, or other reasons are used by the Jew haters to justify their hate, demonizing, and support for violence, war, and terror against Jews and Israel. Even if one reason is disproved or dispelled, they will latch on to another reason to hate and dehumanize. Hate, demonizing, and supporting violence, terror, and murder against the target of that hate is an evil and weakness that far too many embrace. Long before Israel was reborn in 1948, there was persecution against Jews, not only in Christian majority Europe, which culminated in a Holocaust and mass extermination, but also throughout the Middle East, parts of Asia and Africa, where Jews often lived as a second-class persecuted minority subject to periodic massacres and pogroms. Jews were demonized, blamed, hated, and persecuted when they did not have a country. Jews are demonized, blamed, and hated when they do have a country. When war is waged against Israel, Israel is blamed for the casualties of war, for the refugees that all wars inherently create, and for all of the other negative consequences and outcomes of war. Many of the accusations made against Israel by Israel's accusers are crimes the accusers themselves commit and project onto Israel. Millions of people, for example, accuse Israel of colonizing, occupation, and more, as they themselves live on lands that were stolen from native people and that are now occupied. Most Israelis are Jews from the Middle East and North Africa, including what is now Israel, where the effort to harm and murder Jews existed long before the State of Israel became a UN-recognized nation in 1948. There were massacres of Jews all over the Middle East and North Africa, not just in Europe, including in British-controlled Palestine. Prior to the establishment of Israel in 1948, the anti-Israel crowd accuses Israelis of being invaders, even though Israel is their historic homeland and has been their reborn modern nation for over 75 years, as the accusers themselves hypocritically live on occupied, stolen lands, including in Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Africa, South America, and in many more places. The long history of imperialism, conquest, colonization, capturing slaves, and occupation is a history not only of the actions of Europeans, but also of Arabs, Turks, and others. Jewish tribes lived on the Arabian Peninsula and all over the Middle East and Africa long before Muhammad was born. The history of the Jewish tribes and of Jews in general is one of being slaughtered, driven out, made into slaves, and having their lands and properties stolen. Israel is the world's scapegoat. Jews, a small in number ethno-religious minority, are the world's oldest scapegoat. The Jew hater is often easily recognized. The Jew hater blames the Jew for everything that they do not like in the world. The Jew hater takes no responsibility for their own actions. The Jew hater holds blameless those that wage violence, war, and terror against Jews or Israel. The Jew hater is obsessed with demonizing, defaming, and dehumanizing Jews or Israel, the only small Jewish majority nation in the world. Some Jew haters use the word Zionist instead of Jew, falsely believing that using the word Zionist instead of Jew hides their hatred and disguises their effort to demonize and destroy Israel. Just as demonic Hitler blamed the Jews right to the end for his many failures, for losing the war and more, so too does the Jew hater blame the Jew and Israel for everything. including the mass murdering, kidnapping, sexual abuse, and other atrocities committed by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and others from Gaza on October 7th against defenseless people of all ages inside of Israel. Hamas wages war using civilians as their human shields to hide behind and beneath, having wasted billions of dollars on tunnels for themselves and on enriching their fat cat leaders in Qatar and elsewhere, and not a single bomb shelter above ground for civilians. In typical Jew-hating fashion, the Jew-hater blames the Jew, not Hamas, for all civilian casualties of the war Hamas started after breaking a truce on October 7th. Blame, defame, and take responsibility for nothing. That is the mantra of the Jew-hater from time immemorial, and now it extends to their hatred of Israel. Countless millions believe the end times and paradise will not arrive until the Jews are slaughtered. As bizarre and demonic as this is what millions believe, unfortunately, for all of humankind. Millions, maybe even billions, blame, defame, and hate Jews to the degree that they will murder any Jew they can get their hands on, including babies, if given the chance. Exactly what Hitler and company did, exactly what Hamas did and brags it wants to do over and over. A few Jewish-born people that are full of hatred against Jews and Israel for whatever demented reasons made them that way are tokens elevated to a status they do not deserve, and they are paraded around to validate the Jew-haters that do not want to appear anti-Semitic. Even Hitler's mass murderers found a few turncoats to help them in their genocide. Many defenders of Jews in Israel get bogged down responding to the many accusations, the countless defamations, the endless smear, propaganda, and demonizing of Jews and Israel. This is like responding to the symptoms of a disease while leaving the disease itself untreated. The disease is the pathological, demonic human weakness and need for a scapegoat, a target to hate, an enemy to unite behind, demonize, and blame. It is made worse, more virulent, by the human weakness to mindlessly conform to the crowd, to the group, to the mob. The need for a scapegoat, the human propensity towards violence, which most typically, although not always, targets the Jew, means evil continues to reign. The hatred for Jews and the hatred against their once small majority Jewish nation, Israel, might be more treatable if it were a disease instead of the evil and pathetic weakness for which it is.